Folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the changing sort of structure of families and society at large, the importation of gazillions of third world peasants, the cost of living, arbitrary law, feminist ideology, gay lesbian ideology is placing pressure on all sides, really, at what was considered to be a family structure, parents and children together. Now, the change in the cost of living, which is being forced on us by the globalists all across the Western world, is also having a big effect. Fewer and fewer people are able to live independently, and the need to live in communal living is certainly coming in. And whether that means you live with multiple generations of your family, or you live communally with just others in your society, maybe on the basis of, shared identity, shared values, whatever the case may be. You can have these gay, lesbian, or lesbian communes, gay communes, these sorts of things, hippie communes, whatever you like, vegetarian communes. So are we seeing really a change in society that's being forced upon us by, as I say, the mass migration, the importation of people that don't share Western values or have any affinity with them, and of course the cost of living, the breakdown of the family structure through divorce and so on. So I just want to touch on a few things here. Now, this is some people that I know where she's had some medical issues. They were leading quite an active sort of sex life, and she's had some serious medical issues and is no longer able to participate in that active sexual life. So what she wants is to she feels, I'm not so much guilty about it, but it sort of accepts the reality that she's got a sexually active husband, and what can she do to manage the situation, as it were. And so she went to her best friend and said, "Hey, do you think?" I'm paraphrasing here, but do you think my husband's hot? Oh yeah. Well, would you fuck him for me if I asked you to? Yeah, like sure. I'm happy to help and assist and so she's arranged arranged this best friend to fuck the husband, and to do it under sort of controlled conditions, but that keeps him sort of sexually satisfied, if you will, and keeps him from maybe considering other opportunities outside of the relationship. But it effectively creates a communal situation where the best friend becomes almost part of the family to, in this case, fulfill a sexual purpose. So now one assumes that the wife will get better from whatever it is that she's got to deal with, and so things will get back to normal for them. Now, I don't know the husband well, but I can't imagine he'd go for an arrangement like that. Maybe he will, I don't know. But nonetheless, it's reflection that she considers this to be, well, it's sensible, it's practical, and under the circumstances, why not? And that's really where I think some of these things are going. Given the increase in the cost of living, then people are having to think about living communally, and again, whether it be multiple generations of a family or other arrangements. And this is going to create a situation where you get a lot of people sort of together. And in the case of, say, the Pakistani and Bangladeshi communities and so on, it's quite normal for cousins and the like to engage in intimate relations and indeed to marry and procreate. And this is like first cousins. It's not like they're fifth cousins or something. So this is something that now I've noticed this sort of in the past. I've sort of been I've been a recipient of invitations to participate in these in sort of strange, I think we'd have hitherto called them sort of menage a trois type things, but many years ago, I'd have been, I don't know, my early 20s, I guess, and sort of quite naive to the ways of the world in many respects. And there's a lady I knew who'd married a rich man, had a beautiful house overlooking, Sydney Harbour. Like, it was a fucking mansion, and he was a car collector, so he had all these exotic cars in the driveway, like his 12-car garage. So she'd married. Now she's a former beauty queen. Okay, so she'd married him, and she wasn't very bright, and she was quite sort of open about it. Look, I wanted financial security. I wanted lots of money. I wanted to be able to live a life that only lots of money can provide. And the price I had to pay was to marry this guy twice my age. He could barely sexually perform at the time. So, I can give him hand jobs and so on, and that he's happy. He's got a hot young chick on his arm, and but anyway, he has a couple of strokes. Like his health goes downhill, and so they have an arrangement. This is an arrangement I came across a number of times subsequently, where the arrangement was, okay, the guy accepts that he can't do it anymore, or any approximation of it even. So he says to young hot wife, okay, I realize that you need to get, have hot steamy sex. I get all that. But I don't want you to embarrass the family or embarrass me or embarrass yourself by cruising the bars and picking up stray men or something like that. I don't want you to do that. And there are certain men I don't want you to fuck, and I don't want you to fuck people in our social circle, because then the word gets out and that embarrasses us in turn. So if you meet a guy that you want to fuck, bring him back to the house and I'll kind of interview him. And if I'm happy with it and I'm approving of the situation, then you can fuck this guy for as long as you want to. But do it quiet, be discreet about it. And so on. So it's an arrangement that accepts the practicalities. Now, is this guy a soy boy cuck? Well, in his case, no. Now, this was I got tapped. This woman came on to me, and no, I had no idea. She didn't explain to me what was going on. She took me back to the house under the. I'd like you to, I like you. I'd like you to meet my husband. So I wasn't cognizant of what was going on. I thought, why would they want to invite me? I mean, she would have been, I don't know, about 30, I guess, at the time. I'd have been, say, 22, and he'd have been like fucking 70 or something like that, and in quite poor health. So anyway, so I turn up, and it's quite a lavishly done, the silver service, and I'm very impressed. Sumptuous affair, a nice. They call it a sort of a quick snack, but I was like, wow, I never eat this well. And the guy was filthy rich. So he's talking to me, and then he approves it. He nods to. So we're in the three of us there. He nods to her. Yes, I approve. Which I still didn't get at the time. So then she must think I'd got it, or the penny had dropped, and it hadn't. I was still wondering what was going on, and I thought it was very gracious of them to invite me. But I detected there was an ulterior reason for it that was being undeclared, but I just wasn't sure what it was. So she grabbed me by the hand and then took me off into a lavishly appointed bedroom, started to get into get undressed and get into some sort of sexy outfit. And it was only then that I realized what was going on, or thought that I'd understood what was going on. And I don't know whether it was my sensibilities, but I thought, well, I don't think this is right. Why? She said, well, you think I'm hot, don't you? Well, yeah, but that's not this is kind of really weird, isn't it? And her view was, well, these sort of arrangements are practical, sensible. They're a reflection of the reality of their circumstances. I get to fuck a hot babe and get a nice lunch. What's my problem? And we can do it again later. And please fuck me hard and all this. So, and I thought, no, I don't really like this. And it kind of put me off. But I thought it rather strange. So she decided that no, I needed to be told by him that it was all okay. He was approving of it, and in fact, the chat we'd had earlier on was his interviewing me for the purpose of approving me to fuck his wife. And I still didn't. No, this is kind of weird. No, I don't really like this. I'm sure that's my youth and my strict upbringing that sort of kicked in on that one. But it also happened subsequently. So it's happened a few times outside of this. There's one some years ago where the guy had suffered some sort of industrial accident, and he wanted me to. His wife actually was pretty hot. He wanted me to fuck his wife, but then he wanted to watch and masturbate. So I said, no, I'm not doing that. Okay. Jesus Christ. And so I passed on that. So, but anyway, the point I'm trying to illustrate here is just in the amount of times I've come across it, which is I think 3 or 4 times now in my life, that these sort of arrangements, given I've come across it that often, and I'm just one guy. I don't know why I've been tapped so often on this, but maybe assured of discretion or something. but these sort of things I'm seeing more and more, and hearing about it more often in the communal sense. Now, in say the Pacific Islander and even a lot of the African communities, inheritance is often through the female line, because it's accepted and assumed and quite entrenched in a lot of cultural situations that people will live communally, and the woman is, if you like, a communal sex object, but in charge at the same time. So inheritance is through the female line, because there's no male line, there's no patrilineal or patriarchal type arrangement in there. So inheritance, so the woman always knows who her children are, but can never be quite sure which man is associated with which child. So, and again, we see this in the African sort of things. But the idea of say in the case of the Islander communities or indeed the African communities, the idea of investing in the future and creating wealth and developing wealth so your ancestors have something and your children have something, that's not something you do, because everyone in the tribe or in the commune is looking after everyone else and sharing it. So by the sheer virtue of sharing everything, or as they would perceive it, sharing everything, then everyone is taken care of through that. And if there's less to go around, just means each person has less, but no one in fact goes without. Now, this sort of concept, if you look at the mass migration to the West, the people from the Indian subcontinent are living that way. A lot of the African communities in the West, and when they come to the West, are living that way. So it's not unusual to see, 10, 15, 20 people living in one or more, living in one dwelling. Now, on top of that, the importation of mass peasant labour has got, in effect, communes running where the labour hire scams that are going on, and they're fucking legion all across the West. There are so many of them. They bring in masses of these illiterate third world peasants, and they put them up, 6 to a bedroom, or you can get numbers as high as 20 to a 2-bedroom apartment. Mattresses on the floor, rotating shifts, the whole thing, so that when one person gets out of the bed to go to work, someone else is coming from another shift, and they lie on the mattress on the floor, and this type of thing, which is, by the way, how it was in Europe in the earlier stages and even the intermediate stages of the Industrial Revolution. That's how people were living in parts of Europe, even in some of the wealthier parts, interestingly. Northern Germany, for example, in the 1860s, you would see that sort of living, where people would just rent a bed for 8 hours to sleep, and then they'd be off again to the next shift at the factory. So we're seeing a complete change in communal structure and how people are living, and the communal nature of how people live. A lot of that placed upon us by the mass importation of third world peasants who live that way in the places where they come from. Now, on top of that, the cost of living has a creeping effect. Now, for the average, say people on the average wage, it needs 2 wage earners, and even then, kids are being asked to, well, can you don't go to university? Can you leave school because we need the extra wage to get by? So we're going to see, I think, a big change in college education and even senior high school education brought on by the cost of living, where kids will be forced out of that and into going to work because the household needs the income. And then again, the idea of if your parents or grandparents, whatever, own a house and they bought it, years ago when the ratio of, well, the purchasing power of the paycheck was much, much higher. They own the house, then you move in with them, and then they don't go to a retirement village. They stay with you and you look after them. So in return, if you like, for providing those care services, you get to live in the house, so you don't have to pay rent or a mortgage or something like that. So these sorts of structures, I think, are all in flux and are all changing. And for younger people getting together, the idea of communal sex and all sorts of things like that are also, I think, becoming more more prevalent. And there's a bunch of kids that they all work at quite a large sort of restaurant cafe, and they're all living 2 or 3 to a room in a house. I think there's 9 or 10 of them living in a 3-bedroom house. They're all white, by the way, these people. But they're saying they have to do that in order to make ends meet because of the sort of income they're getting. But they're of the view that a couple will be in a relationship and then that won't work out. So there'll be some guy in the group that isn't with anyone. So the girl will then go with him and they'll become intimate, but then there'll be another girl will go with then that guy. And so they're constantly swapping and changing partners and intimate partners. And really they're just sort of exchanging sex partners. Now, another thing I'll mention is the constant where younger women are talking about they have fuck friends. And seems to be more women that do this, although I don't know, young women, where they have guys that hey, I'm horny as hell, can you come over and fuck me now? But there's no actual relationship. There's no intention for, say, an ongoing romantic relationship, or they're not thinking about getting married or something like that. Hey, I'm just horny, can you come over and fuck me now? That type of thing. And they call them fuck friends. And I remember sort of some years ago, a girl was telling me about the fuck friend she had, and she was saying the guy was coming over once a week or once every fortnight or something like that to fuck, and she was calling him saying, hey, come over. And she said he's a perfect fuck friend because he's never going to have a real steady girlfriend or anything, so he's always available when I want him. So I said, well, why would you want to fuck a guy who you're quite contemptuous of and sneering in your references to him? Why would you want to fuck a guy like that? Why not fuck someone you actually like or care about or you're in love with or you appreciate or admire or something? And, oh, no, that's no good if you want a fuck friend. I want him to fuck me, but I don't want to. I don't have any entanglements. I want him, I want him to, as soon as the fuck's over, I want to kick him out the door without any sort of concern or remorse. If I never saw him again, I don't care. And so, it struck me as somewhat defensive, even in his approach to relationships. Nonetheless, there seems to be a lot of that going on, which also reflects a communal concept of people who are available for certain functions, shall we say, that are useful, but in no way socially binding upon them, as in on a personal level. And so are we losing the personal thing? Now, if we lose all this idea of investing in tomorrow, that means that will we become Stone Age societies, in effect, like those African mud hut type villages where no one's investing in the future, because why would you? Everything's owned communally. And so why do you give a shit about the future? So I see these are items for discussion, and so I'm putting it out there. But are all these men that engage in this cuckolds? As one guy said to me, his wife's fucking some guy. He's saying, look, she fucks him every now and again. It's no real threat to anything. But if he really pushes the issue hard, it's going to be like, don't never see this guy again. It's going to be like a divorce. And he said, then he's going to get financially destroyed. What is the better of the options that he has? It's just to ignore it. His wife wants to do some particularly kinky type of sex, and she needs a certain guy to do it with, and that was the guy. He doesn't want to do that sort of, and so on. So I think it's just facing practical realities. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.